The technology behind electric vehicles has dramatically improved over the last decade, and so has the styling. The question is there enough infrastructure in place to handle all the new electric vehicles? But many are embracing the power of the motor and even beating race records. And while there's been a lot of pushback from traditional car enthusiasts, these modernized classics are ensuring that we'll have customized cars well into the future.
Back for part 2 of the EV episode. We've kind of gone over the whole history and how some of, it's repeating itself from 120 plus years ago, when electric vehicles were first being made and kind of lost their race with gas powered. But, in the last 3 or 4 years, I would say that EVs have obviously become much more popular, but kind of almost there's a invisible push.
There's been blowback
on everybody to go in the direction of EV vehicles, and there's a lot of challenges that kind of come along with that, but they're also being embraced by some people. So it's just navigating through it, and I think we'll kind of dive into that a little bit on this one, of some of the pitfalls, some of the issues, but a lot of the benefits. And
I agree.
And what's kind of happening with that.
Yeah, I mean, let's go back to this again. We mentioned this on the first episode that, guys, we're burning up the dinosaur juice. Like, we need to do something different. And, is electricity the end all be all? Well, in the last couple of years, a lot of people think that. So, I'm not opposed to electric vehicles, but again, too, I still lean back on my hybrid ideas.
And also too, I mean, you look at the hybrid and while every car company has had a EV, that they in their lineup, it's kind of like we got to have that.
Yeah.
For the most part, like, a lot of them have had hybrids across their whole lineup, so that's a technology that's been pretty, well established. And that's one of the big issues and this is with any tech, is early adopter syndrome.
Yes.
You have a lot of these car companies that are popping up, whether it's Lucid or Lordstown or Faraday, and they might not be around for another couple years.
Right.
They might not have the resources to fully develop, and so you're taking a risk of, I would say, go grab a Tesla, or maybe a Leaf or a Prius, and you're good. Like, you're probably you're not
happy with that.
You're not any different or worse off or whatever than a regular car.
Right.
Technology support, service wise, but you look at a car company that's just coming out, or you maybe did a pre-order on it, and you're probably going to have some issues. And there was one that we talked about that completely went away, and people were selling the car on eBay for like $20,000,
right?
Like a tenth of the price, because there's no one that can service this or fix it. It's worth nothing.
Well, see, we're in uncertain times right now, because there's certain people that are telling us that we have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's an actual mandate. I mean, the state of California, it's mandated that by 2035 that
you
can't even buy a brand new gasoline powered vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So my personal feelings on that, and again, personally, I don't like the fact that the hybrid technology was overlooked.
Yeah.
Because I think that we're so much closer to the hybrid thing being a 100% acceptability thing throughout this country, where I think that there's still so much pushback on a full EV.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those that pushing back, because again, too, I'm not really comfortable with what the grid is going on.
Well, and that's the thing. Yeah. Everything is becoming more electrified.
Right.
And that's more stress on
Exactly.
the electrical grid. And yes, there is a lot of companies and people that are building up that and expanding it and looking towards that, and knowing that we need it.
Exactly.
But it's just, sometimes you got to go step by step, not just all in all at once.
Exactly. And if history repeats itself, like we've been taught to view it, if you look at it, we're not ready. we are 50 years away from this really truly being an electric society. And I'm not saying that, in the 50 years, hey, I'll be very old if I'm even still around, so I really won't care. But at the same time too, I think that for our next generations, that we need to look into some type of alternative, whether that be, we know that the hydrogen thing came up with Toyota. Obviously, propane is a big deal too. Still, I mean, there's a lot of vehicles are a lot of buses,
delivery,
a lot of large things. So we have other alternatives besides gasoline.
Yeah. Well, and even there's a couple. I mean, obviously we talked about the solar aspect of it, and obviously that technology continues to get better.
Sure.
As much as more it can absorb and the efficiency of it.
Right.
We talked a little bit about the solar power as, kind of more concept thing, but that's starting, the technology with that is getting better and more efficient.
Right.
Where essentially you can potentially, charge as you drive.
Right.
Versus, plug it in and let it sit for a while and charge up. And theoretically that would be one of the most efficient ways, or at least help supplement that. But even last week, a car that's called the Stella Terra, was actually designed by some university students. It went off-road across, northern Africa,
right,
620 miles.
Yeah.
Without recharging.
That's great.
And it's a two-seater, two-door. It does look like a student drew it.
Yeah.
But,
But at least we're starting.
Like I said, top speed of 90 miles an hour. It only weighs 1 ton, so it's very light.
That.
But
because you're not going to sell that car in Seattle, is what I'm telling you.
and that's the thing.
Right?
Yeah, it's good for a supplemental, way to store energy.
Right.
And you're talking about your general maybe around town doing it, like, hey, if we can just, while I'm driving to the store and back, it kind of recharges what I used.
Yeah.
Cool.
And if it sits out there like a battery tender, then great.
And that's exactly. So that's, you could be at your office or at a parking lot, not plugged into a charger, and it's charging. So I think that's going to come in as a supplement to it and just make things more efficient.
Because I think this is what most people think when you say the word EV. I think that and it's because of the results of what's been happening lately. There's been a lot of magazine press, there's been a lot of just general
news
press,
that
owning an electric vehicle is a pain in the butt. And what I mentioned with this is we're losing our freedom, because you look at like a gasoline car, I bring up the Seattle thing. If it's a cloudy day and you've got a solar car, what is going to happen, right? And I know people say, well, there's photosynthesis cells. Okay, but generally, and this might be what happened 100 years ago.
And that's, in people's minds.
They look at it, well, you know what, I can fill it up with this go-go juice and it goes, doesn't matter if it's raining or if it's sunny out, right?
Yeah. And that is still one of the big issues, that likely will be solved.
Yeah.
With EVs, same as, I'm sure it was with gasoline, is okay, how many, charging stations are around every corner.
Right.
How long does it take, to charge up? Whereas, you can fill your tank.
3 minutes,
couple minutes.
Yeah. Right. You're on the road again.
9 times out of 10, you go in, you grab a water and a snack.
It's already
by
full.
the time you come out, it's full.
Yeah.
You're talking hours potentially at a fill-up station, or if you're, unless you have a 220 and the whole system at your house,
right?
You're talking a day or two maybe to fully plug in, and obviously where a lot of that the issue happens is in rural areas, but also if you're on a road trip,
you're going to Vegas, you're stopping at Eddie's World no matter what,
and they probably plan it that way. They're like, okay, LA,
we'll go this far, right?
And that's a friend of mine was doing in a Tesla, Model 3, LA basically to Montana.
Okay. Ooh.
And obviously, it'll map out on your route. Hey, here's all the charging station that you need to hit.
Yes.
And that's what's cool, at least about the technology, is it's not just, hey, here's your gas stations. It's, you will need to stop in this area.
Yes, right. No matter what.
And here's one.
Yeah.
Here's a charging station. You will need to
Right.
stop here.
Which goes back to my theory about Elon that I mentioned in the other episode that I like the fact that he said he's not a car guy. He's a transportation guy. And that right there shows you that he's using technology and what we have available right now to say, look, you want to go from here to Montana? I'll get you there.
Yeah.
Right.
This is what you're going to have to do.
Right. Now, are you going to have a visceral effect of, well, if you play, your music loud and it happens to be, Hot for Teacher or something like that in the beginning, right? Because you're not going to have that same car. You're not going to have that engine noise, right?
I mean, and that's the thing. And maybe it's a little bit generational.
It is.
With like for me, yes, I like hearing that, but I'm not, right. I'm not that 80s Hot for Teacher, kind of thing. So like for me, like, I like it's got a lot of cool tech and settings I can mess with.
Right.
And it's got instant torque. Yep. Instant power.
Right.
Like this thing, this is fun.
Yeah.
Like to me, that's how I, kind of look at it. But yeah, that sticking point of still being able to go on that, couple 100-mile road trip. Like, and that's the thing, we know with gas cars, they say they get this range and these miles to the gallon, and it's never completely accurate.
Right.
It's the same thing with EVs, and they've even got stuff engineered where the wheel covers and the tire size and the tire ratings all factor into the range you're going to get, and obviously, maybe the faster you're going, the more power, which is the same with gas. You're going to waste more gas.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is, a lot of people look at the EVs as, well, I'm not filling up on gas. I'm saving money.
Yeah.
I'm plugging it in and it's only, a couple bucks extra a month on my, electric bill.
Yeah.
But if you're in a pinch and trying to, it's like that gas station that's in downtown LA right off the freeway that's $2 more than everybody else.
Because of convenience.
Right. You get some free charging, from Tesla or whoever.
Yeah.
Obviously Tesla's done a great job of, putting out their charging stations and their infrastructure, but there's a lot of little pop-up companies making these fast chargers and install them in a mall parking lot or in a hotel, and obviously charging for the service. Well, and you can do some math on some of these, and basically, depending on what it is, a full charge at a fast charging station, that you're paying for, could cost the same or more than a full tank of gas.
It does. Actually, if you start really crunching the numbers, it's very similar to what a gas tank is. Because again, too, okay, let's plug in a 220 welder and let it run for 8 hours, and let's see what my bill is at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you, it's going to be expensive. Right. And also, too, you're opening up what you just mentioned is look at vending machines. Right. I mean, in the 70s, I grew up with a lot of parents that owned gas stations. Okay. Well, now that's not really a lucrative business anymore. I mean, to a certain extent, right? But now you look at with Tesla and this technology and everybody complaining about the Tesla chargers, like you have to have a Tesla. Like, the people that are driving the Ford Lightnings right now are hating it because they have to have some type of different configuration to go into a Tesla charger.
And that's what's one of the tough things is obviously, Tesla kind of smartly so locked our plug from our, charging station works in the Tesla.
And dude, he got that from... Come on, you got that from Apple.
And I was going to say
that's a total lightning plug, compared to USB.
Very, very smart. But control the whole, system.
What I'm getting at is guys that own a vending machine is very similar to owning a charging station, or a guy that would have owned a gas station in the 70s. Now a charging station is not unusual to have.
No, and that's what I say. It's there are company, Tesla or somebody that has that infrastructure, but there's also just a random, Charge 21 or something.
The greatest one I've seen is the movie theaters, where there's a local movie theater that has a charging station that's not Tesla, but it's at the movies, and I'm thinking, well, okay, would it be great if people would go back to the movies, but you're going to be basically there for 2 hours.
Netflix and your Tesla while you're at the charging station.
Here we go, millennial. But what's fun about now is, like I said, it's uncertain times, but also there's a lot of opportunity that's open to us. So we can debate all we want about this, and some guys are going to be hardcore EVs, some guys are going to be hardcore gas powered, some guys are going to be right in the middle.
What's funny is I just discovered this as part of this whole research thing is that there's something called icing a station.
Excuse me?
So that's purposefully parking a regular car so that someone can't use that charging station.
Move.
So it's called icing a charging location.
It's a dick move. Come on.
It is funny, but that's just like, no, you didn't need to do that.
You didn't need to do that. Right.
But no, and that's obviously, so having those in malls, you know, or in shopping centers or hotels where people are apt to go, you know,
spend some time.
Because that's the thing. Like, we were talking about the gas station. You start filling up, go and grab a snack, you know, come back out and you're done. Yeah. Well, it takes a lot longer. Right. You know, or maybe there's a line of people to use the charging station. So, hey, okay, go to the mall, you know, go to have lunch, go to the movies.
And look at this. Have we thought of this? Malls are closing like crazy across the United States because of Amazon, because of, you know, even that's good. This goes back to eBay even, right? You know, people can order what they want off the computer and it'll be delivered to their house if they want them to be. Now, if you have to get out and be out in the world, like the rest of us normal human beings, you have to travel someplace and spend some time with somebody. You might as well spend it in an open air area that has some type of entertainment or food or some type of quality of life, right?
The interesting thing that I've seen with that, and I don't know of any issues yet, but could see it being potential, you know, gas stations, you've got usually a cover,
right? Yeah, you know, the awning, whatever.
The awning, you know, there's a store, there that you go into. There's the pumps. There's lights. There's cameras. More or less every like charging station thing that I've seen is just in a corner of a parking lot. Yeah, there's very little light. There's no cover, from, you know, if it's raining or whatever. Right. There's no security.
I know.
You know, and if someone's sitting there for half an hour, like,
you're kind of,
there could be some issues, but I mean, that's all just details. Yeah. But no, that's the biggest thing, you know, right now is the infrastructure. Right. And, you know, one of the issues too, that a lot of the car companies, the OEMs, you know, your Ford, General Motors, they kind of bought into full stop the EV kind of craze and the push from the government in the last couple of years, to be, okay, we're coming out with all these new models and we're going to replace the Mustang with the Mach-E, you know, we're going to have,
dumb idea,
you know, all, you know, electric trucks. We're going to have, you know, basically like we're changing, you know, 100 years of gas into EVs in the next couple of years.
Well, yeah.
And they started to, and kind of saw that the demand was very regionalized, and not necessarily as popular. Because honestly, if you are looking to get an electric vehicle right now, you're probably your top choice, or the first thing you're going to think of or look at is a Prius or a Tesla. Right. So you're not those people aren't necessarily looking at General Motors or Ford, and so they've kind of started to pull back a little bit.
Yeah, and I know General Motors announced a few weeks ago that they're going to suspend their Silverado, the electric Silverado.
Which they should have called that the Evalanche. What was it?
Evalanche.
Yeah, I was like, they had a name that could have been really perfect for this, but they didn't. Yeah,
I mean, they came out with the electric Hummer, and they're there's a few of them.
Well, and the problem was like the base price on. I mean, we talk about pricing on a lot of these too is becoming an issue because, with the Hummer EV, it was basically like $100,000 plus, you know. Yeah.
Large vehicle and not really need. I mean, the crab walk thing's cool if you're off-roading.
It's a gimmick. Even for off-roading, you're not crab walking.
Crab walking around things
that much.
Yeah. Well, and then also too, you look at the Lightning is also not doing well.
Well, and their part of their entire pitch, and especially too, like if we look at, you know, the Rivian kind of is marketing towards the adventurers and the off-road camping, you know, outdoors people. The Ford kind of went after
truck.
The reason why the F-150 is the number one selling vehicle is the fleets. Yes, you know, the work truck. Right. So they're like, okay, you can plug in, power your tools. You can power your home.
Yeah.
You can tow with it. You can do all these things. And their main thing was it's going to be the same price as a regular F-150.
Yeah.
You know, and then you started seeing them at dealerships for $70,000, $100,000.
Not only
even
that,
with the Rivians and stuff, like they're, because of the demand.
Right.
I mean, that's what's interesting. Like we talk about how maybe there's not as much demand, but it's like, there's a demand, but there's an extremely low supply. So there's not as much of a demand as maybe they thought.
Right.
But like they pulled back, you know, too much. There's just basically just hard to get. So people are willing to pay.
Well, and also too, I think with any major amount of technology, I don't care what you're purchasing, if you're getting something that is top of the latest, greatest technology, you're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
So obviously combustion engines technology dates back 100 years. So you're not going to pay that same amount of price that you are for an EV.
Yeah. And that's a lot of it has, you know, you're having to get paid back on the research and development, the
exactly.
R&D.
Right.
That's with most tech. Yeah.
Right.
The new thing coming out costs extra. Then it starts to lower itself down because they've paid off the R&D. Now it's just manufacturing.
Right.
So it's the same kind of thing.
Now I look at Ford though. Ford's made a mistake here, and they're paying for it dearly because they of course went, okay, number one selling vehicle for us, F-150. So what are we going to do? Electrify it.
The Lightning.
Right.
Yeah. Mustang.
So Mustang's our number one selling car. What are we going to do? We're going to electrify it.
Yeah.
Ford Maverick. We're going to electrify it. Smartest thing they could have ever done. They should have made those things like freaking, you know, cookies.
Yeah.
Right. They went after because they think Americans are going to obviously want the F-150 because it's larger. Well, fleets want something that just moves things around. So they really they missed the mark there. And I think they could have probably honed their skills on EVs with the Maverick. It would have been a low buck deal. They would have got into it. And I think it would have worked out for them. Now, the Lightning's out. The Lightning is 3 times the price of an F-150. Is in limited supply. Is not living up to its expectations at all. The towing's not there. The payload's not there. The charging. Bill Ford himself took a trip in a Lightning on Route 66. He said he'll never do it again.
And he doesn't work for Ford anymore.
He doesn't work for Ford anymore, right?
He wouldn't have said that if he was still, you know.
So what is that telling you? That's telling you that we're not ready yet.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's, and it's, like I said, it's all going to come down to the infrastructure, you know, the efficiency. It's kind of, just let it happen.
Let's do its thing.
Versus forcing it. But, you know, we'll kind of see, you know, how it kind of rolls in the future. But, you know, I think right now it's still, you know, Tesla obviously is still kind of the number one in the game.
Right.
Also, you know, obviously we're talked about Rivian with the trucks. They've also had a contract for doing, you know, delivery.
They're delivery
vehicles.
for Amazon. Right. See them all the time.
Obviously, Tesla's been testing their, you know, semi-truck, you know, version. And so there's obviously we've mentioned there's a lot of EVs in, you know, kind of more your utility and industry, commercial purposes. And there's a lot of those that would work very well, you know, in, you know, delivery vehicles or, you know, trucks, stuff like that would be great. But, you know, you're talking about your general commuter car or your general, you know, consumer, it's too varied.
It is.
You know, a semi-truck, you know, it's going to go long haul, long range.
Right.
A delivery truck, you know, it's going to go 50, 60 miles, set route, starts and stops.
Yes.
You can design around that.
Right.
You know, when you're then looking at, you know, somebody that drives 5 miles a day in a city.
Perfect car for him.
Or somebody that drives 50 to 100 miles in a rural area or drives, you know, on a road trip. There's too many variables. And so, you can have some vehicles that are specific to some of those needs, but you're still just kind of weaseling in there.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of the performance stuff because there's a lot of stuff to talk about there too.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. If you've been in a Tesla or especially a quad motor or a Plaid or anything like that, I mean,
they're fast.
You're it's like a gravitron, you know, it roller coaster. It just puts you back in the seat.
It does.
You know, I remember this was even probably 10 years ago of, the Model S, and people were drag racing them.
Right.
And they're like, oh yeah, it's 12 seconds every time.
Every time.
Which maybe takes some fun out of it.
Yeah.
But
right.
It was no matter what.
Yep.
You're launching.
Yeah. So you bracket racers, watch out.
Yeah.
Guy's not going to break out.
No.
Well, and
so you look at companies, like Holley, they've
embraced it.
They've started to push into the EV. They got the EV Fest.
Yeah. They're high voltage events.
Yeah. High voltage. That's right. Yeah. And some of the parts, cause obviously we talked about like people are still customizing
exactly
Teslas. I know several people that have bagged Teslas.
Zammy.
Zammy, Marlin,
Marlin,
the Rollers, Tina.
Yeah, right. I mean, all these guys. Yeah.
So that's,
and
doing
they're
wraps,
beautiful. Yeah.
Doing custom interior, stereo systems. There's opportunities to customize these. And also too, it's probably not there yet for and also, Tesla's very, tech heavy on don't mess with our software.
Right.
So the tuning aspect of it's kind of not there, but potentially there's, I bought, it's the same thing as what we do now and have done is, I bought this model, but I like this feature of that model, or I want to improve this. Mm-hmm. That's something that could be done down the line.
Well, that's the other thing too. Tesla, obviously you've heard about how you can download certain features as well, right? So, your Plaid is a dual motor equipped, but it's the program that you need to download to make it a Plaid.
Yeah.
So,
and they do this similar stuff with their kind of autonomous, driving and all that, kind of stuff. And you can also play Tetris and stuff on there.
Exactly. But what people need to, so here's some of the basics that we should really look at, because electric cars do have some different similarities. Like, for example, what they weigh. Yeah. Because they're about double the weight of a regular gasoline power engine. And a lot of people don't know that.
Well, yeah. You look at the batteries, and their center of gravity is very different because, there's a couple kind of terms for this of the skateboard, or the sled. Right. Where you're kind of putting the same foundation under, a vehicle, because you've got all your batteries, right, and you got your suspension.
Exactly. And that creates a lower center of gravity, which creates a different roll center, which actually will make the car handle better. Mm-hmm. However, if it weighs twice the amount of another vehicle, it needs to make up in torque. But now we're talking electric motor, so torque's not a problem. So what I'm getting at is racers need to embrace this. They need to look at this at a different level.
And some have.
Right? You look at the guys that just beat the Pikes Peak deal.
Yeah.
Boy, Joseph, you're so mad at me right now. But they didn't just beat the Pikes Peak record. They smashed it. And the reason why they did is because they didn't have to worry about altitude. They didn't have to worry about the air getting thin after, 9,000 feet. They're all of a sudden like, hey, we're 12,000 feet. We're still running 100% of efficiency that we were at 9,000 feet. Mm-hmm. So that's stuff that you got to look at for different applications. And also too, hey man, all of us like to go fast. So
have you heard of a guy with Johnny's flux capacitor?
Tell me about him.
So little dragster car, EV powered, and for quite some time, and had a top speed 104 miles an hour and 0 to 60 in 3 seconds.
3 seconds.
And that's obviously what a Tesla can do now.
Yeah.
But this is, many years ago.
So yeah, let's go ahead and bring up swaps.
No, and that's, we talked about in the SEMA episode of a lot of EV swaps and EV stuff, happening and becoming more popular. I think the first one that I saw in person at SEMA was the salvage to savage. It was the Tesla square body kind of road race, wide body style, and had all that in there. But one of the guys that's been a big, he's like a YouTuber mechanic, and then I actually worked with him on a TV show a little bit ago, is Rich Benoit, and he's Rich Rebuilds. Okay. So he was, and Tesla, he's fought Tesla a little bit, on this of, being able to repair and rebuild a, Tesla. Right. And even when he tries to order parts, they, basically only want you to go to your, service center and your tech center and stuff like that. And, right. So, but he's like done, take, 2 wrecked Teslas and basically make one, good one out of it. Right. And, he's done a lot of different swaps and stuff like that. But and it's interesting. He even recently did a opposite. He did a LS in a Tesla.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Okay. So that's the same guy.
Yeah.
Well,
so he's done a lot of that. And he worked on Robert Downey Jr. Had the Dream Car TV show where he was kind of basically taking some of his car collection, his classic cars, or they're buying some and converting them to be more efficient and less emissions.
Sure.
So obviously they did a couple, EV swaps. One of them, lifted K10, Chevy pickup, had a Tesla, motor, had, all the batteries and stuff in the kind of in the bed area.
Right.
And, pretty cool.
Yeah.
Did a Corvette, the same thing, did a Volkswagen bus.
Right.
And then they did some other, biodiesel and hybrid, stuff to mix it up. But what's interesting is you kind of notice and, mentioned doing the bus and stuff like that is the Volkswagen Porsche guys seem to be very early adopters in the whole swap thing. I mean, there's a company called EV West that you can order a $20,000 conversion kit online. Yeah. For a Porsche 911, a Volkswagen Bug, a bus, a Carmagia.
Yeah.
That's, hey, this is all tested and proven. But all you need is your batteries.
I can tell you exactly the reason why they're so popular. Package. It's the package size that goes into that engine bay that also bolts directly up to the transaxle. Yeah. Right? Which most electric cars don't have a transmission. Right? So it's kind of funny. I know Jeff Smith, who's another buddy of ours that do the podcast Car Guy Confessions with. He had mentioned a guy that they were doing some drag racing with an EV setup that when they switched over to a transmission, they almost tripled their time. So even the transaxle and transmission is still something that's going to be. What I'm getting at is we're not throwing away the whole
regulating your torque and your.
Well, now you're controlling the torque.
You're controlling it.
You're controlling the torque, and you're able to multiply it too.
Yeah, and so that's either might be done with software or something.
But what I love about that is that we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right? We're still looking at this technology got us this far. What happens when we complement it with this technology?
And that's the thing is when you look at it is well, this is doing. You need this.
Yeah. Yeah.
This needs to
happen. You got
to
transfer this to this.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? Yeah.
Well, that either happens with this.
Yeah. Right. Or winding.
Or
with
this. Yeah. It's you're getting your power and your turn. The RPM from the gasoline or from an electric motor.
But
it's very similar fundamentals, just different.
But I think that's why all of the German transaxle designs make the most sense because you're basically cutting a adapter plate.
Well, and that's the thing. Yeah. So those kits will have the adapter plate for that. It's interesting. Like even the throttle assembly is a Prius, part. Right. And then it includes, the motor, obviously you can get, different deals with that. And then just, hey, get your own batteries.
Well,
BYOB.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the other thing too that I love is like last year at the SEMA show, we saw a ton of I saw a lot of Corvettes, like early Corvettes, like C3s, like the split windows, things that they would be blasphemy to ever
kind of
touch
like
those.
A little bit of everything that was
exactly.
EVs, Bronco, C10s.
Yeah, I saw a 55 Chevy truck, that kind of stuff. But what was funny, I was actually speaking with a younger guy. And he was like, "This is horrible. They've ruined this Corvette. This is blasphemy." And I'm like, "Guess what, guys? The suspension's still the same. The brakes are still the same. The car still looks the same.
Still the same.
And when gas is $25 like a gallon, you're gonna say, "Man, that EV doesn't look that bad," right? So I think swaps are here to stay because if Elon can't make a good-looking car, well, he can make a great power plant, and you can put a great power plant into a good-looking car.
Well, and GM, is kind of offered their. Is it the EV rod?
I think they call it E-Rod.
No, but that was the
other
LS package E-Rod.
So what do they call it?
Well, let's find out real quick.
Know. But I know what you're saying. It's the Bolt power plant.
Yeah, it's out of the Chevy Volt. And
now if you take it to an authorized Chevy dealership.
And now, that was kind of the whole thing of E-Crate.
Okay,
what they're calling it.
Okay.
So the E-Crate system, is basically a crate engine,
Yeah.
with a drive motor, and has, they'll include the battery pack and obviously all the parts and system and all that stuff, basically everything that, you would need to do to
Right.
swap this over. But yeah, they will only do it at an authorized dealer. So you can't just mail order,
Yeah.
EV crate, E-crate, and
Which
swap it in yourself. But
I get
which is
it.
interesting, because I remember
You
talking.
could be electrocuted.
I remember talking to one of the guys, and he's all, he's like, "Yeah, we don't want anyone messing with those orange wires.
No, no.
Those are those will get you."
Yeah.
But that's what's interesting is, you're seeing, all kinds of different swaps. Obviously, one of the most controversial, and especially with GM, we're talking about, Project X.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. That was a Carcraft hot rod magazine, or popular hot rodding
Yes.
project car since the 60s.
Iconic. Yes.
Been in movies. They've put, big blocks in it, small blocks. They've done different,
Blown,
basically
all
just,
kind- yeah.
hey, that's just the project
a
car
project
that's
car.
always going to continue.
Right.
And they did, at the height of the EV craze, they did an EV, swap into it, and
That didn't go over very well.
didn't go over well with
Yeah.
a lot of the hot rodders and stuff like that.
That's
and
kind of GM know your audience.
and
I'm
that's
going to give
it
them
is.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't go after what essentially is one of the quintessential
Yeah.
hot rod cars of a 57 Bel Air,
Yeah.
and throw that on there. So obviously they went back and put a huge big block
They
in
put
it.
the biggest
biggest big
production
block.
motor you
Yeah,
could
they're like,
possibly
all right,
get.
all right,
Yeah.
well,
how about this?
let's overcompensate the other way.
Yeah, right.
So.
No, that's all right. You know what? I think that the future is very bright for electric vehicles. However we get there, it might be a little bit rocky, but honestly, I think there's a lot of smart people out there doing a lot of real fun things. And I think that honestly, I can see myself in my lifetime having a type of hybrid vehicle.
Honestly, in my opinion, my next new vehicle, I would like to be a hybrid.
Yeah.
Especially too. I drive a 4Runner every day. Love it. Horrible gas mileage.
Right.
But they haven't, because Toyota likes to not, I guess, redesign the 4Runner.
Right.
Ever.
I know.
There's been like three iterations of a Tundra, 3 iterations of a Tacoma.
Right.
In between, still the same.
Yeah.
But with their Tundras and the Tacomas and Land Cruisers, they've got hybrids that get that have 400 foot-pounds of torque.
Yeah, exactly.
And
right. So they're great.
Probably 20, 30 plus miles to the gallon.
Right. What more can you ask for?
That's the thing.
Kind of like it's everything.
What are you going to complain about?
Yeah. Why should you be worried about if I plug it in or put it in a gas station? Who cares?
No, that's the thing. Yeah, you're saying you got a hybrid that's got tons of power and great fuel economy. Like
win-win. And you don't have.
Okay, what's the downside?
Yeah, exactly. And you don't have you're not crashing another energy company, which if you've noticed, your oil companies are now energy companies.
Mm-hmm.
So it is something. It's going to be, like I mentioned, it's going to be a rocky road, but I think that we're going to see at the end of this, we'll see a lot of great technology come out of this.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. It's just navigating that rocky road,
right?
And not trying to just go in all at once and jump in head first and not know if there's enough water there, down below.
Exactly. Look before you leap.
Yeah. So I think it's just, it's coming, it'll come, and who knows, maybe in 50 years, there's another technology or another fuel source that's looked at as even better.
So that's kind of what we've been trying to, we've been saying we're going to have flying cars since the days of the Jetsons. So who knows? We'll see one day. But I think a lot of this technology also, too, now you're looking at yourself on autonomous drivers. Like I call them Johnny Cabs from the movie Running Man. But, if you really look at it, look, today I just drove 4 hours in traffic today. And I was not in a good mood.
Yeah.
So if you can have someone drive, great. But there is still going to be a time where I still want to get out on an open highway and I want to put my throttle down to the floor and be able to feel that acceleration.
And that's, especially here in the U.S. with Americans, the car is always represented freedom.
Exactly.
And I'm not necessarily saying whole patriotic for freedom.
Right.
It's just you're able to travel wherever you want at any time,
right?
By yourself or whoever.
Yeah.
And you're able to just boom. Okay, I want to get away for a little bit. Cool.
And I think
head out there.
Yeah, and I think if we could nail that down, there wouldn't be a debate. If you could just tell somebody that, look, you can jump in your electric car and go from California to New York, I don't think anybody would care.
And it's not going to take a month and
it's not going to take a month to do it.
20 stops a day on
if you
charging.
Yeah, if you pretty much say, hey, it's going to be the same gas for electric and this is what's going to happen. Because anybody that's going to comment that a gasoline engine is better than an electric motor, get in one. And I bet you're going to change your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
All right.
Well,
that's a good place to wrap it up.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very
next
much
time.
for listening, and send those comments to Bill Ford at.
Yeah, give us all your hate mail in the comments below about electric vehicles or not. And also, too, I was watching some of the rich rebuilds.
Yeah.
Stuff the guy was talking about.
Right.
And so one of the, obviously there's a lot of stuff with the whole, right to repair, all that stuff. And he's in Massachusetts, and that's a right to repair state. And,
yeah.
But the main thing that I got to take away, he did a test from there to North Carolina in a Rivian truck.
Okay. Yeah.
And basically it came away with, this is, unless you have a Tesla,
yeah,
it is useless for anything except around town based on charging.
Yes.
Because where he was driving,
yes,
so he was 400 or 500 miles.
Yeah.
So that's what, fill up.
Yep.
Before you leave, fill up halfway. And when you get there,
Yep.
And so it took him like 2 days, not a day.
Yeah. Right.
And so because it's not Tesla, he has to go to the
approved charging stations.
All the random ones, basically.
Right.
So
that have a line.
It's all on the app. No, that wasn't the issue.
Okay.
It was, some of them maybe aren't working.
Yeah.
Some of them are maybe a lot of them are at hotels.
Right.
And you have to be a guest
yes.
to be there.
Yes.
And then obviously they charge, money and stuff, and they're slow. So like he was at one, and he'd been there for like an hour, and it was like $9, and it got him 18 miles.
Right. So
18 miles of a charge.
Bill Ford.
And real quick, just before, so when he fully filled up there, it cost him $24.
Okay.
And it gave him an extra 100 miles of charging. So with that, he's all, with this math, a full charge on this at this, station would have been $75.
Right.
That's a tank of gas.
Yeah. It's the same.
It's this, yeah.
It was the same back then too. Like this, the same thing. So Bill
Ford.
Well,
that's, obviously the battery stuff back then wasn't.
Bill Ford, just because he retired, so he took a F-150 Lightning, and he tried to drive Route 66, and that article is insane. That's the same thing. It was like, fuck this.
No, that's basically what Rich
Bill
got
Ford
to that point.
Telling you.
Yeah.
Like,
because he would get kicked out of the hotel and the parking lot. So, I mean, let's talk about all this, but I just want to kind of
no, that's
because then he was like, okay, this, and he came to one spot and the charger wasn't working.
Right.
The only other one that he could use was like, 15 miles this way.
Right.
So he had to go, half an hour out of his route that he was doing.
Right.
And he had like 19 miles left on his charging, and it was like he didn't know if he was going to make, and he's like, I'm just trying to drive 400 miles.
Right.
Like I'm
doing a very
trying to
simple
drive
thing.
what I could do in a day,
especially
no
in
problem.
California.
And it's taken me two days.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of frustration,
Yeah.
risking. So, but that's part of the infrastructure thing,
Yeah, but we were doing that 100 years ago too.
Well, that's
That was all the same, and we started the
talk about
infrastructure
all that.
then. So, where's the disconnect, right?